it was huge, right? Like right there by itself, 900 backers would have been an absolutely successful campaign for us. Great, like awesome.
You brought in basically 3,000 people who were first time backers on Kickstarter.
Kickstarter actually contacted us about that too. Yeah. So we had 6,500 people just leave their email, and another 2,600 on top of that also purchased the $1 mini expansion.
If you can get somebody to open their wallet, right, to grease the tracks,
Yeah.
right, even for $1. If I go to the Dollar Tree and I'm like, oh, I'm going to buy this one thing, it's like, yeah, well, I might as well buy these 12 or 15 other things.
Yeah.
They're all $1. It's not a big deal. All right, so Amy, Dusty, you're coming off of a $1 million plus Kickstarter campaign as first-time creators, which is exactly how you drew it up. You sat down, you're like, okay, we're going to do $1 million right off the bat, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
So tell me what you're feeling. Tell me what you're feeling right now. Like, what was the expectation going in, and then kind of where are you at right now?
Well, our goal was $5,000. And we had some like kind of benchmark goals above that where we
like knew how much we needed to make to get 5,000 products,
certain price breaks,
2,000 products,
and we had plans based on all those things. Like, oh my gosh, if we manage to hit $85,000, then the business will be completely up and running, and that would be incredible. We'll see how it goes. And we did that by dinner time on the first day.
Yeah. Well, and we were also looking at all these other great Kickstarter campaigns,
like aspiring to be,
and we're like, oh my gosh, can you imagine if we were like
400,000?
400,000?
Yeah,
that'd be like amazing.
So we were hoping to just sort of like give our business a little push, and now we have like a business.
Yeah, you got 15,000 backers. You're going to get more in the pledge manager. I assume you're going to do a late pledge and bring more people in. A lot of times, I've seen some companies able to get 30% of whatever they got in the campaign. They get that in the pledge manager, sometimes more. I mean, that potentially for you could be another 300 grand of backer pledges coming in. It's just phenomenal, and I'm excited just to kind of chat about, okay, how did you do it? Like, what does that look like? I know there's always a little bit of luck. There's a little bit of capturing lightning in a bottle. It's not like somebody's going to be able to take notes from this podcast and go, okay, now I'm going to be able to run $1 million campaign. But there's still certain things that you did that set you up for success.
I don't even know if our next campaign could be $1 million. But like, I feel very confident we could have another successful one for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, now that you've built up people knowing about you, and that's one of the things that's so hard, to cut through the noise and to just be known, right? There's so many games coming out. There's so many big companies on the market using Kickstarter, using crowdfunding to run their own campaigns, even though they maybe don't really need to. And so as a first-time creator coming out the gate and doing so well, it's super, super challenging. What would you say are some of just the main things that y'all did leading up to the campaign that then provided dividends later for people backing the project?
So we used a company called Launch Boom, and they were phenomenal. But you don't necessarily need to. But we just had,
since it was our first, we had
We had no clue, and I typed in how to Kickstarter, like literally that in Google. We were that just absolutely out of our depth, and they were one of the first things that came up. And so I contacted them, and they had just had a really nice
Well,
they're in San Francisco. They're kind of near us. Yeah, we live 3 hours outside San Francisco. I just started talking to them, and they have a good team of consultants. And what they did, it's kind of like a combo consulting and coaching program where they teach you how to do pre-campaign marketing. You do a lot of it, and then you meet with them, and they say, this is all going right. Yeah, change this and this, and so there's a lot of education involved at the same time.
Can we afford that price?
Yeah. And so
we're like, we think we can.
So we that was one of the few big leaps we took. So we're very much about I wouldn't say risk averse, because we have 3 other businesses, but we're very cautious, and we assess our risks as though, okay, let's say we spend this money and we get $0 back. Like, is that catastrophic? And if the answer is no, it's not catastrophic, that we can survive it, then we'll usually go for it. So we started up with Launch Boom, and they had just incredible advice, taught us how to run all our Facebook ads, helped us, rebound ideas and talk about stuff, and just really get all that stuff figured out. And we spent a few months just like working on all our marketing and writing all our stuff, and figuring out how to market a board game in the first place, like how to write stuff about it and what pictures to take and do that. Then we started kind of ad testing, where we put some ads out there to see if people responded well and what they responded to. and we did 2 weeks of that.
And we also heard that the best picture was the box picture.
Yeah, we had our video guy said the box picture always wins, and it did. It was one of the best pictures we had, and so we had to go, like, we were real granular, like, okay, which pictures are working, which text is working, things we never would have thought of, like even with our other businesses, we never thought of it like to this level. And so we had a meeting with Launch Boom, and they were like, okay, guys, so usually at this point we have about 20-30 reservations. Like, we were selling a little mini expansion, which got a lot of people to sign up, and instead of 20 or 30, we had 600 of these pre signups for the mini expansion. And we're like, okay, so this appears to be working, but it's still just like, I hope, right? So by the time the campaign started, we were, when we were doing stuff on Instagram too, and we with our flower farm, we have not a huge following, but enough people that it keeps us in business and stuff.
And then we also we sell flower presses online, like on Etsy.
So we had some advertising we kind of did through that, but like, it was like a mix of it. But yeah, so by the time the campaign rolled around, we had 2,600 of these 8-card mini expansions sold. And it was cool. The mini expansion is only available for like the pre-campaign stuff. And 9,000 email signups, which was about 8,990 more than we expected to have, like, ready to sign up for the game beforehand. So yeah, that was that and just kind of building our Instagram following off of that were the two biggest things we did. Just like finding anybody at all who would, like, finding our market niche, right? Finding anybody at all who would see the game and who would respond to it, and the response was pretty good leading into it.
Yeah, and so for our market, it's kind of different than a lot of board gamers. Like, we also went after, like, the gardeners and the flower pressers.
Yeah, Launch Boom has this giant sheet of all these different audiences that they've tested for different industries, and they work with technology companies and stuff. And I was kind of going through the sheet, and I picked the board game ones to create audiences on Facebook, and I'm like, yeah, these will be pretty good, and they responded well. And then I was like, I'm just gonna kind of look around and see what else. And I found they had an audience that was like targeted towards people who are fans of gardening publications. And I'm like, sure, let's throw this in there and just see what happens. And it was one of our best performing audiences, so I guess advice for the listeners would be like, don't just think I got to go to Board Game Geek and win these guys over. Like, look outside the market, because Amy had never even heard of Board Game Geek before we started this campaign, even though I look at it maybe like once a month, but even I'm not on there all the time.
Dusty definitely likes the more hardcore.
I like play BattleTech and Magic and all that fun stuff. Yeah.
And I like the little simpler, like, quick to learn, basically what we made for
Dominion
ourselves.
and Small World, yeah, and stuff like that. I mean, those are, and which are really fun games. Like, I like them too, but she definitely isn't in there rolling dice with me as we're like trying to blow off a mech's arm or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's a very interesting thing that people can learn from this. So I interviewed a guy, this is a while back on the show, and he had a game called Distilled, which was all about making alcohol, making whiskey and different types of alcohol. And he had built up a following, kind of like y'all had, with people that weren't like gamers, right? He had reached out to a ton of people in the business of making, different types of, I don't even know, different type of liquor, basically. And he had just built up a following there. And then also the game was strategic enough where it appealed to the people that, they like strategy games, the gamer kind of folks. And so he had this really cool intersection of people coming, and he made about $500,000 as a first time creator. And so maybe there's just something to think about as a game designer, as a publisher, that you don't just have to lean into. Well, I guess it depends on the context. If I'm making a 3-hour Euro game, I'm going to lean into the Board Game Geek, crowd, because that's what they want. But if you have a game that, like you said, it's a little bit lighter, a little easier to play, a little easier to get to the table, you learn it quick, it plays fast. Think about, okay, who are the other people that might be interested in this? And you just got to ask them. You just got to put the ads in front of them. And so tell me about those ads, right? You talked about the box art. You have a beautiful game that makes all the difference in the world. It looks great. As soon as you see it, you're like, ooh, what is that? And so, but tell me about these ads that you were putting in front of people who aren't necessarily gamers. What were some of the things you were saying, the pictures, any of that kind of thing?
So the pictures, I think the pictures were the biggest thing, because we had some pretty good text, but we only tested out like a few things there. But the pictures
because it was doing so well.
Yeah, because it was doing so well. Like, we didn't want to rock the boat. The box, we got told, Amy made a beautiful box, and she designed it after these like old vintage books that she collects, like from the Victorian era, like on period books. And then the other stuff, so we have a wedding photography business, and so then we put up a lot of stuff that was just like shots of the board game as though we were at a wedding, taking photos of rings and and reception tables and flowers and stuff, and so we did all that. And so just, you know, really nice artwork there too. And not to say that everybody needs to be a photographer, but like, you know, if you're looking for some place to invest a few $100, if you have a friend or know somebody who can do nice shots like that, you know, it's really easy just to set it up on a table outside or in a field or something, and get good non-traditional shots. One of the guys that helped us a lot was Ori from Kagan Productions. He did our really cool video that we have on there, and he also does like a marketing kind of deep dive. And one of the things he pointed out was that, like, we, you know, a lot of Kickstarter campaigns, a lot of the campaigns that I back, you go and they have like a, you know, they have the 3D rendered like spread of the board, like proof of life. Here's the game, and here's the things that come with it. And without even really thinking about it, Amy just put one of the, you know, like one of the shot of her hand in the gloves with the cards, and like an artistic shot as the first picture on there. And
well, I also like to follow lots of people that like to dress as time period pieces, like on Instagram.
and so we just led with that image as opposed, you know, non-traditional, but it was, again, thinking about our target market, it was more like what they would resonate with, as opposed to, you know, like when I go to back BattleTech, the first thing I want to see is, I want to see like every miniature that comes in the game, right?
Yeah, but you bring up a good point here in that different at times can be better than better. So you're not coming in saying, "Hey, this is the best board game. This is the best flower game ever." You're just saying, "Hey, this is different, and we're going to present it in a different way. We're going to present it in a way that is unexpected, and it catches people a little bit off guard." And then what happens is our little lizard brain is like, "Ooh, I want to know more." Right? You're opening up all these loops, and you're like, "Oh, what was that?" And people are all of a sudden they're scrolling down the page, and now they're learning more about the game, and they're seeing these beautiful images that they're not used to, because it is different than, you know, the CMON game that has all the miniatures and all the 3D renders, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I think there's something, again, to be learned from that, is like, how can you make your game stand out? Now, I feel like a lot of this from y'all is coming in because you didn't know the quote unquote all the best practices. You weren't going, okay, I've studied, you know, 100 of these campaigns. And so, but I think that's something super valuable. You came into it with a different look, you know, new eyes, so to speak, a different angle. And it just happened to be a really smart angle. I think sometimes you can come in with a new angle and you have no idea what you're doing, and then it shows. But you didn't necessarily quote unquote know what you were doing first time campaign, but you came into it with a mindset, again, professional, good angles, you know, thinking through, okay, this is what appeals to other people in other places with these other businesses.
Yeah, with Ori, we also talked a lot about like who is our target market,
and with Launch Boom too. Yeah. So yeah, it is one thing to say, oh, we came at it from a different angle, but it wasn't like some magic or flash of inspiration. Like, we had a few people literally say, like, what was the magic? And I'm like, it doesn't feel very magic over here. Like, it just feels like we thought really hard, like, who are we trying to market to? And then we took everything we learned from our other businesses.
What do they like?
Yeah, what do they like?
What do they look at? Like, I don't think, well, how many, we had like 20% of our Kickstarter
our new backers
are new. And
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm like, what do they like to look at? Probably more Instagram, Pinterest, rather than Board Game Geek.
Yeah.
And so that was more our kind of target market.
So like, we weren't making sure that we had a little how to play, but it was broken down into like real simple terms, and we tried to make the rules, like, we tried to go for like the, you know, Dominion and Magic and Small World and game, like Kingdom Builder, like they're games with like really simple rule sets that have incredible complexity within that rule set based on like what's in front of you. And so we tried to do that. And so rather than like try to hit everybody over the head with that, we were like, okay, look how easy this is to learn how to play. You know, you're not a gamer, that's okay. You have gamer like family members, you know, and we tested it with, we have the full breadth in our family and friends, and so we tested it with people that hardly game and people that play game a lot. And so don't worry about that part. Like, get over that hurdle, and then look how cool this looks, and look how much fun you can have, and look how neat all these things are, and focused kind of that angle. And then below all that, once we'd kind of made the sale visually, then we had the things like, here's the rules if you want to read them, and you know, here's the details of this and this and what comes with it and all that fun stuff.
I just want to point out the fact that you brought in basically 3,000 people who were first time backers on Kickstarter.
Kickstarter actually contacted us about that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Really? What did they want to know?
They wanted to just talk about like how the process went for us. They really want to know how did it go for us? Yeah, incredibly nice people. How did it go for us? What can they do to make it better? You know, especially given the fact that we had so many people that were new to Kickstarter. And so yeah, it was just really, they were really helpful, like about everything that you know, we listened to. We had some ideas about like, oh, it'd be nice if this was a little more seamless, or if we could, like because there were some people that were coming to us and they're like, I really want to back this. I don't understand how Kickstarter works at all. And not just some, there were quite a few people, and that's fine. That's an easy problem for us to solve because we just walk them all through it and tell them how it works, and then make sure that we're really we communicate a lot now going forward, because now they got to go through the backer kit process, and that's weird, and then charging shipping later, and that's not necessarily how it works when you buy stuff from Target, right? So yeah, they were just trying to make sure that they were doing everything that we needed to help with that whole process, since it was sort of abnormal.
Gotcha. I want to go back and talk about Launch Boom for a second. Do they charge a percentage of what they help you bring in? They charge a flat fee on the front end. How does the payment structure work?
Is flat fee.
When we did it.
Yeah, it still is, actually. Okay, I talked to them just about it the other day, just to make sure, because I was telling people. It's flat fee, and then you get it for the whole campaign. So however long you need as a run-up. We hired them in right before Christmas. And we worked with them all the way up until the campaign launched on the 1st, and then I was still emailing them, and they have they have 3 main consultants as of right now. I mean, that could change because as they get more people, but they have a bunch of different branches and a bunch of different people do stuff. But as far as the actual campaign ads help, they have 3 consultants, Justin, Hera, and Soren, and every 4 days a week, so you can email them anytime. They do check-ins with you where it's one-on-one, and you jump on a call like we're doing now, and go over stuff in detail. And then they
help you also make sure that your Kickstarter page looks nice.
Yeah, they do. They review all the stuff you send them, and then 4 days a week they have what are called office hours, and you just shoot them an email. Hey, I want to jump on office hours and review my ads, and then a bunch of people from the group. So it was usually anywhere from 20 to 40 people would jump on. You could see what other people are doing. They take you in breakout rooms and you go over the stuff, and you take 10, 20 minutes and go over everything. And it's incredibly efficient process. Never even once lacked for attention from them, which is amazing given the number of people that they're working with at any given time. Their advice was always spot on. We just tried to do everything they told us to do. And when we were like, oh, we're not sure we can make that work or whatever, they'd work with us to well, let's, here's an idea for how we can fit it based on how your business runs and what your guys' goals are and stuff. Just unbelievable. Really, really good. Absolutely one of the key factors in our success, because they gave us, we still had to make the sale, but they helped us figure out how to get the audience to even make the sale in the first place.
Very cool. All right. Another thing I want to go back to, and this is something I haven't really heard of people doing in the past, is that the reservations where you're selling a mini expansion. Tell me about that. How much was it? What was it? What was the process?
Yeah, it was $1, and we had started off with doing a $1, and we were going to do a day 1 early bird, and we were going to tell these people about it first. And most campaigns, that's great. Nobody finds your campaign on day 1. You tell your backers, they get day 1, you turn it off. Again, back to that, we were supposed to have 20 to 30, and we had 600. Suddenly we had a lot more people, and
then at the end we had
2,600. Yeah. So very early on, Victor at Launchboom came to us, and he's like, look guys, this process sort of works if you're a tech company and you're and you're selling a $1,000 AI driven robotic arm or something like that, right? Sort of different for board games. Is there anything you guys could offer these pre-backers? And we had seen, I don't even remember what campaign it was. Somebody had done a mini expansion when we were researching other people's Kickstarter campaigns. We're like, oh, that's cool. And we talked to Panda Games Manufacturing, our manufacturer, and so we talked to Clark and Gardner at Panda, and we're like, hey, could we make this work? So we had 8. It's 1 character that will never be offered anywhere else, and 7 blue flower specimen cards that you just shuffle into the main deck, but they're not anywhere else in the game, and they keep the balance of the game. And it was $1. And we're like, if you can leave your email, or you can pay $1 to sign up for this mini expansion. And when you back our game on Kickstarter, then you will also get the mini expansion.
And then we like doing these mini expansions.
Yeah, and it was absolutely triggering in me, oh gosh, I need to make sure I get this. Oh wait, I could get 5,000 if I wanted to. It's they're cool.
We did another mini expansion exclusive
for the Kickstarter, yeah,
that was about roses.
And so of the 2,600, and this was just trackable, about 900 of our 2,600 reservations have converted so far, and 500 of them converted on the first day by lunchtime, because we were emailing them, hey, in a week we're launching, hey, tomorrow, or 3 days we're launching, tomorrow we're going to launch at 7 a.m. we're going to send you all emails letting you know that this is going, and the response was immediate. And this was one of Launchboom's statistics, but those people that do that reservation, they have a 35 to 45% conversion rate, and I think ours was about 45-ish so far, maybe getting close to 50. No, that would have to be more. 13. Yeah, it was like 45% of them have converted so far. And like when you have regular email signups, it's more like a 1% conversion rate, which based on what I can see was sort of true. I think we were 1 to 2% of anybody that gave us an email, but it's hard, it's hard to track because people find us in Kickstarter and they see us multiple places. But yeah, it was huge, right? Like right there by itself, 900 backers would have been an absolutely successful campaign for us. Great, like awesome. Like,
so did you say that someone could either pay $1 or give you their email address?
No. They could leave the email, but if they paid $1, they got the mini expansion. Yeah. So it was like a 2-step
Oh,
process.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the email address for information.
Yeah. So some people were kind of on the fence and wanted more information about it.
Some people left the email and then came back. Yeah. So we had 6,500 people just leave their email, and another 2,600 on top of that also purchased the $1 mini expansion.
Okay, very cool. This is super interesting to think about, because if you can get somebody to open their wallet, right, to grease the tracks, right, even for $1, even something pretty insignificant, then all of a sudden, and I feel this too, like if I go to the Dollar Tree and I'm like, oh, I'm going to buy this one thing. It's like, yeah, well, I might as well buy these 12 or 15 other things. They're all $1. It's not a big deal. It's you just psychologically, it gets you going, and all of a sudden you find yourself buying a $100 board game. And so I think that's a very interesting thing to think about and to offer. And you're saying that expansion is only available at that one time. Like you'll never offer it again either. Right?
Yeah. Which we, I feel like I know that like a year from now, people are going to be like, "Where is this and where did it come from?" Right? And we'll, it was pre-marketing.
It's kind of like
it's like Kickstarter,
San Diego Comic-Con exclusives.
Yeah, Kickstarter exclusives. Yeah, so
and you got to be careful, because I've seen some people kind of shoot themselves in the foot doing that, and it's like, oh, we really want to offer this later, but we told people we wouldn't. And so you can give yourself a way out and say that you're going to offer it for $1 here, but if somebody wants to buy it later, you're going to charge $10, and so they get a much better discount or something like that. Like there's different ways
and that's kind of why we went the mini expansion route too. We didn't want it to like, it's fun and it's cool, but like the game is still the game without it, right? So it's not like it's not like a deal breaker.
And for our last stretch goal, we ended up doing a seaweed like kind of mini expansion. We just added it to the game though, because we're like
permanently.
A lot of people were asking us, what about seaweeds?
And I thought we put that up, and we were sitting there like, okay, we're at 850. We have 2 days to go.
Are we gonna make it?
Are we gonna make it?
Projections kind of said we were.
Yeah, we were looking at a lot of different projection sites, and they were saying we had a chance. And I was like, you know what? Let's just put it up. And then we spent the next 36 hours just like chewing through our fingernails, like, oh gosh, this is going to be so embarrassing if we put up this $1 million stretch goal and we don't hit it.
So tell me about that, because like, did you have stretch goals in mind going in, and then obviously you blew through them? Like, tell me about that.
We blew through every stretch goal we made public by lunch on the first day.
Okay, we're gonna need to stretch these out.
Yeah, so we started, and we spent a lot of time with Panda, like talking to Cardner and Clark about like, okay, we have, what are some ideas? And they gave us some good ideas, and could we make this happen? And will this fit within, because we
how much more will this cost us?
Yeah, we have to make sure that it doesn't like, break the bank where we offer a stretch goal and it costs like half the box, which we had people lobbying for stretch goals that would have cost us like half the cogs on it. And so, we figured out what would work and what wouldn't. And every time we hit a stretch goal or
like add too much weight to the box.
Yeah, too much, mess something up. And so, like one of the stretch goals we came up with was rather than having the same shape pawns, we now have a different pair, like a different shape for each pair of pawns for each player. And so like people were like, hey, we need the next stretch goal. We need the next stretch goal. We're like, we're working on it. We're like emailing back and forth. Like, can we make this work? Can we make this work? And how do we make this work? And is everything going to be okay? And what is the cost change if we do this? And so there was like a lot more going into the figuring out of the stretch goals than we had anticipated. We had a big list. We put like 5 or 6 of them up to begin with, and we're like, okay, well maybe if we even get there, then we'll start tapping into some of these other stretch goals and see if we can make them happen. And yeah, we ate our whole list. We ate the next list, and then we ate all the new ideas that we had after we ran out of list A and list B.
Yeah, and unfortunately I've seen several campaigns become basically the victims of their success, and they didn't necessarily talk to the manufacturer. They didn't think through what it was going to do to the weight or the cost of the game, and all of a sudden it expanded out like how long it was going to take to deliver the game, or it made the game heavy enough where it went into the next threshold, and so all of a sudden that $10 shipping rate is now $17, exactly, now you can't fit as many on a pallet. Like everything changes. And a good friend of mine named Jamie Stegmeyer, when he ran his first campaign, he was very, very successful back in that time. And I don't even know
That
if
was Viticulture was his first, right? If I
yes,
remember right? Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're not talking about $1 million campaign, but he had a final stretch goal of adding metal coins to the game.
Yeesh. I
And
did
he
not know that.
didn't hit it. He didn't hit that final, kind of like you're saying, what if we don't, what if we put it out there and then we don't hit it? Well, he didn't. And he felt kind of bummed about that. But then looking back, he's like, wait, that would have totally screwed up everything. It would have messed up the weight of the box and the costs and everything. And so looking back, like I've talked to him about it, he says if he had hit that stretch goal, he would not have a company now, because that first game project would have put him way in the red, nowhere near being able to, make money and come back with another project and then all that. And so
that's funny
Yeah,
about the coins.
I wanted coins so badly, and we actually agonized over how, because
For
coins
weeks.
cost a lot.
For weeks, yeah, because we've been working with Game Trays, and Mike at Game Trays, we were kind of like, hey, he's like, have you thought about metal coins? And we're like, yeah, we're kind of looking into that. We got to figure it out, and then
But they're like half the whole box.
They are half the price of the entire game. And so then we agonized over it, and then like I said earlier, we were doing math, and we're like, okay, well, let's say, here's the minimum order quantity, and here's how much it would cost, and if we spend this, okay, well, worst case scenario, we wasted $7,000 on coins that nobody bought, and our kids are going to have the most amazing treasure hunt of all time on the farm, right? They just put these coins everywhere. And yeah, and we sold 500 copies of them in the first day, and 4,500 copies overall at $25 a shot. So we just made them separate. So they were kind of like, if you want them, cool, and if you don't want, I had people.
And then they so we don't pay for the shipping. It's all like it's separated.
It's its own item, so it doesn't change the shipping on the base game. But yeah, we went into excruciating detail with Panda over all those things, like what's this going to do to weight, how's it look, how's this thing's going to do, and then we're using Easy Ship for our shipping company. And we're talking to the Easy Ship guys, like, what's this look like if we do this, and if we change this, and what's it happen here? And so we were making sure to give the right estimates to all our people on the page. We did not do anything, even with the stretch goals, without running them by like every single person that could potentially be touching these things, just to make sure that
didn't throw anything
off. Because like at 500 backers, like, okay, that maybe I lost $500, but at 15,000 backers, okay, well, now I lost $7,500, and that starts to hurt. Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah, every mistake now gets multiplied by 15,000.
Yeah, I know.
And so it's just going back to metal coins. They make a wonderful add-on and a terrible stretch goal, and I just want people to get that in their heads. Make it an add-on, sell it separately. Don't put it in the base game as something you're just adding in.
People do love them.
People love them. So we figured, okay, why not do the best of all worlds? Let's make them available for people who love them and want them, and let's not push them on anybody who doesn't necessarily want them.
I think we added them with like 2 days before our Kickstarter went live.
And there were
let's just do it. Let's see.
There were a lot of funny conversations about our game out on Reddit and on Board Game Geek. But one of the most interesting ones was somebody was like, "Do you guys really feel like these metal coins are necessary?" And I even went in there and said they're totally not. Like, it's just ones, threes, and fives, and if you want them, they're there, and plenty of people do. And if you guys have other coins, as long as you can keep counting your coins, like, go for it. Like,
I know, I was like, quarters would probably work just as
well.
you
can use real money if you really want to. Like, if you just really want that tactile. And so they replied in the post. They were like, "Wow, that's cool that you're okay with that." And I'm like, "Why wouldn't I? It's just a board game. Like, go have fun.
They have flowers on them.
Use rocks if you want. Like, knock yourself out. Like, you can, whatever helps you count. Like, go for it." So,
well, what's funny about that is board games, like as a hobby in general, is already a luxury hobby. It's something like you don't need any of these things, and so to say, well, do you need that? Well, like, we don't need any of this. Some people enjoy it. They like to make their games a little extra, and that's fine. And they'll pay you for it. They'll pay you $20 or $25.
We had a lot of people telling us that
they like a nice velvet embroidered, faux velvet.
Yeah, faux velvet embroidered
bag.
Yeah, very fancy.
Let's talk about this whole notion of, okay, you make a mistake, now you're multiplying it by 15,000. I've talked to so many people that it's a first time campaign, and they say, okay, what's my goal? What do I need to shoot for? And I tell them, you want somewhere between 300 and 500 backers, like enough to fund the project, get you going. Hopefully you're not doing some big expensive thing. You can, get the game out there, you build up an audience. If you make mistakes, they're cheap. Okay, y'all haven't done that. Y'all are on the complete opposite, totally other end of the spectrum. So tell me the conversations that you're having, thinking through, okay, we have to be extra careful. We got to make, dot every I, cross every T. We cannot make an ounce or an inch of mistakes, because all of a sudden the magnitude of it is multiplied by 15K. Tell me about what some of the things you're thinking about. You're talking about things you're afraid of.
It's mostly the shipping.
Yeah,
The shipping.
shipping I've been really worried about.
And we're like, how do some of these people on Kickstarter, so we ship our flower presses, and like we use UPS, right?
Yeah, so for example, we started going through this in detail, and we're looking at like, you know, like a game we backed, and they're offering $8 shipping. And I'm like, I cannot ship a
flower press.
A 24-ounce flower press from Chico, California to San Francisco, 200 miles away, for $9. And they're sending a $5 or 5-pound board game for $8. Well, the answer is they're subsidizing, right? But that subsidy, if they just say it's $8 in the US, well, our fulfillment center is in Los Angeles, and some people are buying in New York, and shipping is going to be 20 bucks. And some people are in Los Angeles, and shipping is still going to be $12 or whatever, right? 15. I think our price range when I did all the math was $15 to $19 anywhere in the United States, right? If they're offering a flat rate, they're eating the cost somewhere. They, you know, maybe you pad it, maybe you eat the cost, but I don't think a lot of people consider that necessarily when they're looking at it against their profit margin. That with 15,000 backers, if we had 9,000 in the United States, if I'm subsidizing $5 per backer, I'm subsidizing $45,000 of profit. Well, if you want to do that, that's okay, but you have to look at, like, I have a gargantuan spreadsheet that says, here is exactly what our profit is, and here is everybody that we have to pay to, you know, for our, this is the money we paid for advertising, this is the money that we're going to pay Panda based on the number of units we're ordering, this is the money that we owe BackerKit after the campaign because they have their own fees and stuff like that. Like, here's my profit, can I eat $45,000? You know, and so you got to look at all that. And I spent months looking at every campaign under the sun, all the way back to, like, you know, all the way even pre-pandemic 2015, during the pandemic, to see how badly people got nailed to the wall when they when shipping went all over the place and they were doing that stuff. And I found, you mentioned Simon earlier. I found their campaign for Zombicide White Death, which I backed, by the way, because I spent so much time on the campaign page. It looked really cool. I have never played a Zombicide game before, but I've heard about them. I've heard good things about them. I saw that they had all kinds of things. They had price ranges, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they have price ranges. And they had a thing that said, you will be charged right before shipping. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're charging right before shipping.
Because if you shipping just changes.
Yeah, if you charge BackerKit in June, and we end up fulfilling in March of next year, like, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what shipping's going to look like then. It could be the same. It could be horrible, right? Or it could be better. And so if it's better, I want to give that to my backers. If it's more, I want to make sure that we're covered correctly. I said everything everywhere estimates. So I studied Simon's page really hard. Super smart how they handle everything.
Dusty's the math genius. I just make things pretty.
It's not genius. It's just I spend a lot of time staring at spreadsheets.
I'm not good at math.
Thinking about every possible angle. And so you know, the original question was like, how do we hedge against that? Well, with shipping, we hedge against that by we're either using Easy Ship Collector, we're going to use BackerKit now has a feature to charge shipping later, right? How do we make sure that things didn't cost? Every time we do anything related to manufacturing, we talk to Panda. How do we make sure that this is still going to be attractive to retailers? We're using Golden Goose Consultancy for that. Andre and Chris are two of the most incredible people I've ever met. Incredibly helpful. We went out and we found a whole bunch of people who are experts. We made sure that we could afford to hire them, or that their pricing was tied to.
And we did everything that we could by ourselves that we felt comfortable with, and then hired people
and
to do the things we have no clue how to do.
So, like, Amy's a creator. She creates all day. She can't stop creating. Our house is covered in things she created. Like, we're
outside,
outside, inside. It doesn't matter. Yeah, the whole farm is covered in creations. Our kids are creators. I am absolutely systems guy, right? And that's how all our business runs. So I'm sitting there constantly thinking, well, okay, Amy's creating all this stuff. What can we do to make money off of it? How much is it going to cost? And all the 700 different angles of that. Maybe people listening are not that. Maybe they're a creator. Maybe they're a salesperson. One of Amy's brothers is one of the most incredible salespeople we've ever met, right?
Or my mom's a salesperson too.
Amy's mom could
we
sell.
We don't like selling.
Yeah, Amy's mom could sell salt water to a fish in the middle of the ocean, right? Like, she's incredible. So we went out and by the way, super interesting kind of thing to look at. It's called wealth dynamics. If anybody's never heard these concepts before, you find what you're good at. You do that thing, and you find people to surround yourself with, you know, and AKA pay, who are good, or marry, like Amy, creator, who are good at those
That's
things.
more expensive, but okay.
Yeah, so that's what we did. Once I found Launch Boom, it all sort of waterfalled after that. Through Launch Boom helped me find Panda.
Jellup.
We found Jellup. We found Golden Goose off of an Age Contrives. We were looking at their campaign. We backed their game, and
once our campaign started getting bigger, we're like, we could actually take this to retail, but how do we do that?
Yeah, and so Golden Goose is helping us do that because we don't know, and so to make sure that there are no mistakes, or that because there are going to be mistakes. Like, this is messy. It's a messy process. No matter how much backer kit is really good and how good Kickstarter is and everything else, it's just messy.
And we've also gotten inquiries on like linguistic or what
localization. Yeah,
but we don't.
I don't know.
So we send that stuff to Golden Goose, and it's like, is this a good proposition?
Yeah, so anything like that at all that we don't know, we go check with everybody possible, and things we think we know, we assume we don't, we go check with everybody possible, and we just make sure. And then the other big thing is everybody's been talking about a specific game lately that clearly did not have enough money to finish their campaign. That hurts. So, I know how much money we have in the bank.
People
and
are like, can they even deliver?
Yeah, people are asking if we could deliver. Big conversations about it online, as though we can't also see the conversation they're having about whether we're even capable of delivering. And so, we have all this money that is in reserve, and it's going to stay in reserve until all the fulfillment is done, because I'm assuming somewhere in the process, someone's going to come to us and say, look, we did not anticipate this, and it's going to be 20 grand. Right. Well, that's cool. I have that 20 grand sitting in the bank account for exactly this reason. Let's go. So just to make sure that we have people who can help us solve the problems, we have people who can help us not have the problems in the first place. And then when the problem happens, that we have the funds still on hand. We didn't go blow them on a van or something like that. Or a swimming pool like our daughter really wants us to, just to make sure, that happens. And then once 98% of the fulfillment is done and we're satisfied, okay, cool. Now we can take some of that extra profit and put it back into the business, into our, we've already got more games in the works, put it into those, do that kind of stuff. But none of that until the promises we have currently made have been taken care of.
Yeah, and that's super smart. Like you're saying, you're really just planning for what could go wrong, right? You're thinking through something is probably going to go wrong, and we're going to plan ahead, and we're not going to get caught off guard. Yeah, exactly. It is guaranteed. It's just the way it is. You're talking about shipping. I mean, every January shipping prices go up. And so if you have a campaign that's going to fulfill next year, you can't possibly give people accurate numbers because they're guaranteed to go up. I've never seen them go down, just so you're aware. Like, I've never seen shipping numbers go down. It just doesn't happen. They've stayed kind of the same sometimes, depending on the weight and the packaging and stuff like that. But pretty much they always go up every single January. And so you need to be aware of that and think about that. And like you're saying, just put the money in an account and have it, basically have it planned out, right? You're telling the money where to go. And then you get to a place you're like, hey, here's all this money that now we can turn into other projects, or we can put into other things. We can go on a nice vacation because we've got this profit left over after we've done all these things. That makes a lot of sense. And like I said, you're just finding people to help you do that effectively, right? Finding people that fill your gaps, right? And bring them in. And that's nothing where people run into problems where they're just guessing. They're just trying. They're trying to figure it out, do the best they can. Maybe they don't want to spend the extra money. They don't want to spend $1,000 here and then it costs them $10,000 there. It's like, well, that didn't make any sense. And so I think what you're doing makes a lot of sense. You guys are really good, I'm trying to think, prototypes really for how to do this effectively as first time creators. Now, like you're saying, you're running into these issues of people like, well, they've never delivered anything in the past. I have no track record. I have no reason to necessarily trust that they're going to get a game to me. And so you're always going to have to overcome that. But that being the case, you always have to build up trust other places. So tell me about that. What are some places throughout your campaign, whether it's in your marketing, your customer service, your campaign page, where you were just telling potential backers, you can trust us. I know we've never done this before. You've never heard of us, but we're gonna show you that we're good for it. What were some of those things that you were doing?
Yeah, there were two steps. One, anytime anybody said, but you've never delivered before, what are you doing to deliver? I told them, listen, we have Panda involved. We're talking to them constantly, and Panda has made Scythe, Pandemic, Twilight Imperium, and I just started listing the other games they've made. And they're like, oh, I have all those. And it was funny, when we found them, I had never once thought about them. And I'm like, oh, look, they make these games. And I walked out into our game shelf, and I just started pulling down. I didn't even need to ask them for samples. They were there.
Like, what's the sample look like?
I'm like, so you're wondering about the quality of Panda? Open Scythe. And they're like, oh, cool. That's really good quality. And I said, yep. they make parks. Like, go look at parks. That's that stretch goal for the linen texture. Go touch the cards in parks. That's what you're getting. Wow, those are great, right? So we told them about everything we were doing. Well, how do you know you're going to be able to ship? Well, we're using Easy Ship. Well, I've had these problems with Easy Ship. And okay, well, I've already talked to the guys. I talked to to Matt and Cameron at Easy Ship specifically about your message. And this is what they said happened in that particular instance. And this is what we're doing to make sure that doesn't happen. So just continuous communication. You nailed it when you said customer service. That's us. It's all about customer service. Like, I will spend, like, should I be off marketing to try and get 10,000 sales? Yes. But am I going to spend all that time instead dealing with the 100 customers that I have? If I have to, 100%, right? Customer service before anything else. So
and all of our other businesses.
Yeah, in our other businesses, every single comment, every single email. I think we figured out that we got like 4,000 emails and comments in 30 days, and I responded to every single one of them. You know what? If anybody goes and looks, maybe not every, maybe like 99.999%. They things were slipping through the cracks.
And then some people were like, chiming in for other things.
Yeah, messages on Facebook. You name it. We were continuously involved, and so I had people. I didn't think people would really notice. Like, we just wanted to make sure that every single person was happy. Happy is probably the wrong word, because then you maybe you're making bad decisions. Like, maybe this person's never going to be happy, and you're ruining your business. But like, we want to make sure that every single person knew they were heard and that we were responding to them. And so every single message, we got and I had to get other things done. So every 30 to 60 minutes, I would go through the full list of messages we receive. I'd spend 15 minutes doing that, and then I'd go do the other task, and then I'd come back and do it again. And so people started saying, wow, I noticed, even our vendors were like, I noticed you're responding to every single message that you're getting up and down the board. Yeah, heck yeah. If that person is going to take the time to say, here's $39, I want what you are selling. Like, I am absolutely going to give them my full and undivided attention. When they have a question, when they have a comment. Some of our backers were concerned. We had people on, Board Game Geek can be a little hostile to games of our complexity, right? Or games that use some of our mechanics. Yeah, just a little bit. And we had some interesting people putting up some interesting conversations there about, like, why did you choose this? And we went through our design methodology in detail. Here's the reason we chose to do those things.
And you also have to not take everything personally.
No, we laughed at a lot of it.
I mean, I really have a hard time, but like, knowing that they're not your target market.
Yeah.
Like, just realizing that for myself and being able to be like, yeah, they're not my target market.
And if they weren't our target market, I just said, look, here's what we did so that you can evaluate if you are our target market. Like, I think it sounds to me like you're not, but that's okay. Here's everything we decided. And some of them were like, okay, I see why you did that. I'm still not going to get you game. No problem. That's okay. Like, and some of them were like, wow, I hadn't thought about that. I just went and backed your game for the all-in pledge. And so that's incredible. And if I hadn't taken the time to do that for every single person, would I have 15,000 backers? I honestly don't think I would, right? All the marketing in the world doesn't do much for you. Even me, I'll go and post on some, like, if I'll back a game and it's got, thousands of backers and 6,000 comments, and I'll leave like, I'm so excited. I backed the Monster Hunter Iceborne campaign, and I backed it on day one, and they already had 1,000 comments. Like, they put, I was like, oh my God, 4,000 emails a day. Had 1,000 in one day. And I said, I am so freaking excited for this game, just to put some positivity out there, thinking nobody will reply. And one of their team members said, welcome Hunter, enjoy the game. And I I'm like, oh, they said, like, the customer service, right? They were super good about that. So yeah, just customer service. And by the end of the campaign, they saw we were so involved that we weren't some non-entity. I signed everything with our names so that so they would know it was me, or Amy signed it with her name to know it was her, just to put some humanity in it so that people would know, and that people would like to develop trust one person at a time.
Talked in our story, like at the bottom, about like all of our other businesses and our flower press business.
And here's what we've done. There were some people that put out some YouTube videos that were not very nice, and we had a good chuckle about them. But at the same time, one of my backers actually came to us in a post that got a lot of attention, because a lot of our backers responded to it and said, hey guys, just want you to know, I don't think these things, but I saw a YouTube video where somebody was questioning your ability to deliver, and questioning if you even know what you're doing, and questioning all these things. What do you guys have to say to that? And I basically said, look, they didn't even talk to us, right? They scrolled through our page. I watched the part where they flipped through our whole page, didn't read it, just flipped through the whole thing in less than 2 minutes, which I can't even read the thing in less than 2 minutes, and we wrote it. And they said all these things about how we were never going to be able to do this, but they didn't ask us. They didn't ask about us. They didn't ask about the other 3 businesses that we have spent the last 16 years running. They didn't ask what our plans were. They didn't ask.
Account.
They didn't even. They stopped scrolling before they even got to the section where we listed our partners to even ask like who was making the game. And so, and that right there was a win because our backers were all like, "Oh, that's so cool," and I didn't know those things, and that's that makes me want to back even more because I realize you guys have a plan and all this stuff, and so yeah, building trust is a good point, and we didn't really set out to do that, but I think the customer service was definitely a huge one, and customer service and just being upfront, like this is what it is, and this is how we did it, and if you like that, cool, and if you don't like it, that's okay too. Like you don't have to make a game for everyone. You have to make a game for the people you want to make a game for.
You bring up a good point though in not taking it personally. Unfortunately, we live, I mean, it's always been this way, but now it's just magnified, where negativity gets more views, negativity gets more people talking. So if someone were to make a video and say, hey, check out these new creators, I'm sure they're going to be able to do everything that they're promising. They're going to get the games to you on time. It's going to be wonderful and great.
No clicks.
Nobody cares. Exactly. But if they say, oh, I don't know about these people and do we trust them? And maybe they're just stealing the money and all that. Oh, all of a sudden, it's a conversation. And so unfortunately, that's just the incentive of online content.
I would have been more okay with it if they had talked to us first and then decided we were idiots. Right?
Sure.
Because then at least they did their due diligence to know, to listen to me and know that I am not a smart person, right? Like that I have a bad plan. But yeah, but they're telling our backers stuff. One of them even argued with one of our backers, and I'm like, why didn't you just let him back our game? And the guy still backed our game. It was just very strange. But even that, we turned that into an opportunity to build trust, right? We took it head on. It really, Amy will spend forever thinking about it. If we could have, we'll be on Etsy and we have 250 nice reviews and one where the shipping got messed up and a person was unhappy. It wasn't even our fault. And she will remember that one person forever, not the 249 people that said incredible stuff about her flower presses. And for me, it's like oil on water. I'm just looking at them going, okay, well, what do I need to say about this to how can I, and again, now how can I leverage this to build trust? And that was it. Anytime anybody came to us that I saw somebody said something, I just said, here's all the ways that we're working against that or working to make sure that doesn't happen, or here's our design philosophy or whatever. And just having that open conversation with people was enough to show them that you care, that you have thought deeply about these things, and that you want them to be happy with your product.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'd be a whole another podcast episode to talk about why as creatives we hold on to the one and we ignore the 10,000 good things. But that's a whole other thing.
Mark Manson's psychology talks about psychology a lot. He wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Blank. Yeah. He talks about that in detail, and he's brilliant about why we do those things and how to overcome them.
A lot of it, it's just, again, it's our little lizard brain and hold on to the things we just haven't quite overcome with this new age of online living and things like that. One thing I heard Casey Neistat say, though, this is years ago, but it really stuck with me, is that haters are lazy. It is the laziest thing in the world to just be negative and to say negative things. Again, the people that are being negative about your campaign didn't reach out to you, didn't even send you an email, didn't even a tweet, an Instagram message, like the basic of all easiest thing to write out a 1-sentence question and ask you anything. They couldn't even do that because people that hate on stuff are lazy. It just is what it is. And so I think once you recognize that as a creative person, it kind of helps you get through some of these things. You're like, well, this person hasn't done any effort, put no time into this. This is them just like spouting off, just talking junk. And we see it written down or we see it in a video and it like hits us harder, but it's really like no different than walking by some crazy person on the street and them just saying some random thing. It's like, well, okay, like whatever, man.
You made me think of an interesting thing. So my dad was a real estate agent down in LA when I was a kid. This was before we moved up here when I was real young to the country, but when I was a little bitty kid. And he was the top selling agent in the world for Century 21 for 4 or 5 years in the 80s, like in the entire world. And it was all just in our little corner of LA where I was born. And he for years he taught other real estate agents. He had all these training courses, sort of like what I was talking about finding an expert and learning things. And he would call it overcoming objections. Like, and I've seen other sales things that since then where you overcoming objections. So anytime anybody says something negative to me, what that tells me is add that to the list of objections. And then, and so rather than thinking, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with me, it's just like, okay, well, this is an objection. Okay, is that remove this person and all the screaming they were doing or just the really negative tone they had? And is that objection valid? And then you got to say, okay, well, what kind of objection is it? So we have a mechanic that is highly controversial where you draw an event card and the reason you draw an event card that's random is because when these people would go out into the world and hunt their plants, the things that were happening to them were just like, the crazier the event card we have, the more likely that I was lazy and I took a real life event.
Yeah, I was reading about like one. So I read a bunch of books and looked online about a bunch of plant hunters during the Victorian. Some guy took like a little clipping of a plant that was poisonous. He didn't know. He stuck it in his pouch with his toothbrush. And then the next day he goes to brush his teeth. Afterwards, his heart like starts slowing down. It's like, okay,
couldn't make that up.
Who would have thought?
Some guy dies in a pitfall trap with a bowl at the bottom. He's got one eye and a pet falcon, and he's on the side of a volcano. Yeah, he was snowblind. Yeah,
snowblind.
And he dies on the side of a volcano in this pit trap with a bowl at the bottom. I couldn't make it up. So okay, so these event cards are they're random. Ooh, bad word. Super controversial, and you roll a dice to see what happens, because we were like, okay, well, what's we've played other games where heaven forbid you roll a dice, and we just thought that was fun. And then how did they deal with it? Well, they would make sure they were prepared, right? They would buy equipment, they would hire crew, they would go out in the world, and they would make, almost like running a Kickstarter, they would make sure they were prepared for every random thing that was going to happen to them. Okay, so now we have some randomness, but we also have a whole element of randomness mitigation, and that works against your budgeting and whether or not you can go get flowers, and it just adds a whole layer of depth to the game and strategy. And without having played the game, a lot of connoisseurs of board games found this to be highly controversial. So we went through our design philosophy, and we made a few tweaks here and there to add a little more agency and stuff. But we also thought, okay, well, we're making this to be light medium. This is okay. It's okay that it's like this. It's fun. We're all screaming at each other and screaming at the game and having fun while we're playing. And that's the only thing that matters about this whole board game, is not whether or not it ticks these boxes, but whether or not everybody is having fun, right? And so I went back and I started thinking, okay, well, but people are saying this is an objection, right? And if I don't address this objection, then someone will say it and they will walk away, and that will be the end of it. I'll never see them again, right? I lost a customer. And what could that customer have meant? Not just here, but when I release expansions and when I'm releasing other games, and when they go and tell their friends about the game, it has this compounding effect. And so sometimes that happens and it's fine, but like, if this is an objection, we need to address it. And so I did exactly what I did just now and told you, like, this was our design philosophy. These are the things that happened in real life that inspired us to have it be this way. These are the ways that we have added strategy around this randomness. And I had plenty of people who brought it up that came back to us and said, oh, wow, I hadn't thought about that. That's cool. I just backed your game. Well, great. So, think about those objections. If somebody says something mean to you, say, okay, yeah, they're a jerk, right? But then also say, but they did say this thing. How do I address this? Like,
yeah, that's a good point. And also, one thing I've ran into online is so many people that have sent me messages or comments or emails or whatever, and have seemed like a jerk. Come to find out, English just wasn't their first language.
Yeah.
It's not that they were being mean. They just didn't know the right words. There's no nuance. There's no, they didn't, all they knew was that one word. And in this context, that one word is kind of like, oh man, that's kind of harsh. But that's the only word they knew. So
customer service, that's customer service again, right? When they say what you never engage. Like, I don't know. Have you ever seen like the videos where somebody's at like a coffee shop and the barista is like screaming at the customer? Like, not in our house ever, right? It doesn't matter. They could be the worst backer on the planet, and we have no backers on the planet who are the worst backers ever. All our backers are wonderful human beings, and we love them all to death, right? But they could just be not a nice person, and you stay neutral. You present facts, and then like I think we have had 3 pledges at all that I had to cancel after the campaign. And every single one of them came to me expecting me to do that thing where they sit in the queue on the phone for 6 hours and I don't give them their money. And I just said, oh, no problem. Here you go. And if you want a late pledge. And since then, 2 of the 3 people I had to cancel came back to our backer kit and late pledged again for the exact same thing that they had backed on backer. That, that's fine. Customer service. Just help them. You're not giving them what they want in a way that's, compromising you, but you are helping them get to a conclusion that they are happy with, and independent of how they wrote. Like, don't respond to anything that they've written.
Some people also are just horrible texters,
or they just don't write with exclamation points like we do. Like we put an exclamation point on everything.
Or smiley face.
So I'm just so excited right now. Like, yeah. And so, just don't worry about what people say or how they say it. Try to look at it and say, well, what does this mean? How are other people going to look at it?
They're just confused.
Yeah. And then go rant to your friends about all these jerks that are contacting you if you need to, or writing things about you, people you never heard of saying things about you on YouTube, which you never thought people would say things about you ever on YouTube, unless you ended up like in jail or something. Just take it, look at the objections, think about how you address those objections for people who have those concerns. And more often than not, we ended up winning over the people who were objecting to whatever we were doing in whatever fashion. And we got more backers. And that goes back to that building of trust that we're talking about too.
Exactly. And something I've had to learn from a customer service standpoint is to use exclamation marks, use emojis, use things. Because a lot of times I'm in the zone and I'm like answering as many emails as I can in the next 10 minutes. And so sometimes I'll be just a little bit too matter of fact, just too much to the point. Someone will ask a question and I will answer it. And I don't think anything of it. It's just like, hey, I answered your question. But then they'll be like, hey, are you upset about that? I was like, wait, what? And so I've had to learn. Throw a little smiley face on the end, throw a little exclamation mark, put a little "have an excellent week, my friend" at the end or something like that.
Thank you. Yeah. If anybody listening to this, if you want to test it out, you shoot us an email through our store, message us on Instagram, and the first thing we will say back to you is something nice with an exclamation point, and the last thing we will say when we're done is thank you. I probably said thank you 4,000 times. I thank people multiple times. Every time they would message me 3 times in an hour trying to figure something out. And at the end of every one, I'd say, thanks again for backing our game. I know I already said it, but thanks again. Just know that we are grateful for your attention and use those exclamation points.
Exactly.
Liberally.
And it is so much easier to keep a customer than to make a new customer. And so what you're doing, it's not even just to be a nice person and to want the best for people, make people happy. It's also business. It's thinking through, it's cheaper and easier to keep this person on board and hopefully backing the next thing, as opposed to going out and using some more ads, using more marketing, spending money here and there, wherever, to bring in new people.
And a lot of our backers were like, oh my gosh, I'm telling all my plant-loving friends.
Or I heard from my friend, or we had people who hadn't backed us. We had people backing us who told that people who didn't back us found them and were so impressed with our campaign and thought of them and told them to come check us out because they knew, they didn't say target market, but they knew that their friend was our target market, right? And that's the same thing for our other businesses. Our wedding business is 75% referrals, right? And so it's not just it's easier to keep that customer, it's also easier to sell to every person that customer talks to, because sure, the internet may be full of negative things, but like, if my friend comes to me and says, so I have never played the Binding of Isaac video game. Amy's brothers play it. Binding of Isaac 4 Souls, the board game or the card game, is one of my favorite games of all time. Right. So I went from having no fan base there, not really my style of video game, to Amy's brother coming to me and saying, you got to check this game out. Right. And the first thing I did was go out and buy it, like instantly. And so, it's not just that one person, it's everybody that they talk to ever. Right. So
have game nights with their moms. Lots of people are like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to play this with my mom.
Yeah, your mom, you know what? I love your mom. Your mom, if I'm bringing you two closer together, fantastic. Bonus points.
And I mean, happy customers are your best ambassadors. Like all of the Facebook ads, all the wonderful marketing in the world isn't nearly as impactful as one person who someone trusts, who's had a good experience with you and is now telling other people. I remember, for a long time, I lived and worked in Honduras, and I worked at a high school. I taught English, and then they would also send me out on these like recruiting trips to help bring in new teachers, and try to recruit new folks that were graduating from college. So we went around to all these different universities on these trips. But I would tell the superintendent, I would tell the principals before I left, I was like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to do the best I can. But here's the deal. The best ambassadors are all the other teachers on staff. Because if you treat them really well, they're going to go home over the summer and they're going to recruit for you. They're going to say, you've got to come be a part of this school. You've got to come be a part of what we're doing in Honduras. It matters. It means something. They treat us really well. Here's what we're doing. Like, I can go on all these trips. You can spend a lot of money sending me out and, basically trying to sell people on this thing. But the better you treat the people that work for you, or in our case as game developers, and better we treat our customers, the more ambassadors you have. And so it's just something to think about.
And the detractors too. I had people backing us after they saw somebody put up a YouTube video, and I just went to the YouTube video and I answered the questions they had in the video. I didn't say anything about all of the negative stuff they said. And then somebody, I had at least 10 people come to us say, hey, I saw the comment that you left, and that was cool that you left a comment, and I decided to come over here and check it out, and I backed you. Oh, cool. That's awesome, right? Like,
we've talked a lot about the positives, a lot about the successes and the things you're doing to safeguard things here and there. But tell me what mistakes, what issues you've already run into leading up to and then during the campaign that you could just share with listeners that, maybe they wouldn't fall into the same hole that you fell into. What are some of those things?
Shipping.
Originally,
we were just going to do shipping from the United States. And then we got so many messages about shipping hubs. And
probably 500 of the 4,000 emails and messages we replied to or answered were about having shipping outside the U.S.
And we just didn't know because we didn't want to like overpromise and lose a ton of money.
And I see all these first-time creators that have shipping, like, EU friendly shipping and UK friendly shipping and Australia friendly shipping and Canada friendly shipping. And I was just like, I went and talked to a bunch of people, not just Easy Ship who we're working with, but a bunch of other people. And they were all like, yeah, that's not a good plan. And I said, well, all these other people are doing it. And they're like, it's not a good plan.
You need like a certain number.
You are going to lose a bunch of money if you don't have 300 backers in the UK, period. Right? And that's if you can, and there are people out there, I have learned since that there are people out there that will contact you and say, we'll work with you all the way down to like 20 backers. That's fine. It's going to cost you a lot. There are people out there who say it, but realistically, the process we were looking at, 300 was our minimum number. And we just had so many people asking. And it was the number one, speaking of objections, the number one objection we had in the first 6 days was, why are you not offering better shipping?
We were just trying to figure it out.
And again, I had gone through all these other campaigns and I was just convinced. I was like, my gosh, if anybody out there listening knows that, like, I was looking at this stuff and thinking, man, this is psychotic. How much money did they lose? And you guys didn't lose any money. I want to hear all about it. I want to know everything that you have to teach me.
Yeah. How do we
make this work? Because it was not materializing for us. So we got to the point where we had, like, for example,
we were like, okay, I think we're going to
we're getting close enough.
300 people in the UK.
And we're like, okay, we have 150 people in Australia. The minimum is 300. We got to pay for those 300 people no matter what. Worst case scenario, we open in Australia and we lose $8,000, but that's okay because we made happy customers. We have happy Australian customers, and we have made enough profit over here that we can eat that $8,000 over here from making a big mistake. And we didn't have to because we ended up with like 700 backers in Australia and New Zealand and 800 backers in the UK and like 2,000 in EU or something like that.
One in like Africa, right?
Yeah, we have 87 countries. And I didn't even know we could ship to some of these countries. And I even went to Easy Ship and I was like, hey, I saw somebody back this in, it was a country called Reunion. Never even heard of that country. Looked it up and it's real. Didn't even know it existed. And they're like, yeah, we can ship there, no problem. Okay, good. As long as you guys are okay. But yeah, but when we did that, we opened all these additional hubs. I'm surprised I didn't ask enough questions because I probably asked 100 questions of Easy Ship and UFL, who is handling these hubs for us. We shot a piece of our process in the foot for being able to accurately charge shipping later and also pay VAT. Luckily, that could have been a giant disaster that cost us a ton of money, but all I did was I sent 1,000 really quickly typed emails like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize these things were going to happen. And Easy Ship and everybody else helped us. They're like, no big deal. Panda's like, oh yeah, this is how we do it. We can ship to these different locations. And so it didn't turn into a disaster, but it absolutely could have been a gargantuan disaster that would have killed us.
The key thing about us is like shipping. Like, yeah. I personally didn't think about shipping that much.
And previously we had done, our farm. We ship from our farm, but it's priority mail. We put it in a box. The post office comes and picks it up out at the delivery stand we have out about the other side of the farm, and piece of cake, but. And
we have a few that like ship to like the UK and Australia, those ones like flower pressing. And they get expensive.
Yeah, it's crazy how expensive shipping is. So, just make sure that you're not losing tons of money because of shipping. Like, make sure you find a good shipping partner, talk to them extensively, come up with a plan, and just make sure that we
probably should have started looking into shipping way earlier.
Way earlier. Like before we even realized we wanted to make a board game. Yeah. That is so dangerous. It's really straightforward. This is my game. and it costs me X dollars a box, and I'm selling it for this, and Kickstarter takes 5%, credit cards take 3%, BackerKit takes 2%, and I made X amount of dollars. But shipping, like if your margin is just throwing numbers out there like $20, and you don't calculate shipping correctly, and you make X amount of dollars off your campaign, you can lose half of it to shipping. And if you're not careful, you could spend that money not even knowing you were going to lose it, and suddenly you're like going to Wells Fargo like, hey, how about that small business loan, because because shipping is so volatile. And so charging shipping later, if anybody from CMON is listening, go get some ice cream and think about all the good thoughts that we think about you, because your campaign was so brilliantly put together in that regard. Shipping is so dangerous that you just got to make sure that you have people who can really help you out. And Easy Ship has been incredible. Those guys have been unbelievable.
And then also think about taxes and VATs. Like,
yeah.
So originally we were kind of thinking about opening up a hub or a
fulfillment center
in New Jersey. And then we realized that it would be a nexus.
Yeah, you become an economic nexus in New Jersey if you're fulfilling things from New Jersey. And suddenly, if you don't think about that, you didn't collect sales tax for the 300 backers you had in New Jersey, and the state of New Jersey starts knocking on your door, going, "Hey, you owe $6,000 in back taxes. Why didn't you pay us?" And so we live in California. We found a fulfillment center in California. We already do sales tax in California for our other businesses, and so got that process solved. But I even knew about economic nexuses, and I did not think about until it was almost too late the fact that if I drop 9,000 copies of this game in New Jersey, any of them that go to people in New Jersey, which like I said is a few hundred people, I got to be collecting sales tax on that.
And then we're still kind of figuring out.
Yeah, that we're gonna go to a company to help us figure that out, because that's another one.
It's another nightmare to deal with. I've been dealing with that with my own company. It's like, there's so many things.
Yeah, well, oops, you didn't charge VAT. Hope you never want to go to France again, because they're gonna be waiting for you when you get off the plane, right? Like for tax evasion. Yeah. So, but again, we have all these people that are working, that we have hired to work with us, and they've got their checklists, and they're making sure that we're doing everything. And I am constantly just continuously asking questions, and I feel so bad because you guys can tell I talk a lot, but I ask even more questions than what I am conveying here. And find vendors that will answer those questions, who will help you. It doesn't even have to be people that you pay. We talked about like some leaps of faith we took paying certain people. But just find those gaps you have, and find any way to have people help you with them, right? Like I'm not a salesperson. We found salespeople. I don't understand shipping and logistics. We found people who understand shipping and logistics, right? And then I asked them a million questions. And even if I don't understand the answers, the questions I'm asking help them understand what I need to know and what we need to think about. We probably should have had our stretch goals more lined up. Those were highly controversial. People were way more into them than I thought. This probably would have been a better question a year from now, where we're like, oh my gosh, you asked us that question and we didn't think about these other mistakes we were making.
We do use public domain images, and so we've been really diligent. In the United States, public domain is, I think, 70 years after the people died. And we're making sure everything's like prior to...
Because every country's different, yeah.
I think we're one of the top ones. I think somewhere else is 90 years.
We made sure we got images like on iStock, on ArtV, on Raw Pixel, that were commercially available on Wikimedia Commons.
And make sure that it says like it is, because public domain, and not like, oh, you have to do this and this, or it's not, it's in like this.
And that's specifically in our case. Like if you guys out there are, if you're working with an artist, or you're using art from some place, or you're licensing, just make sure up and down everywhere that everything you're working with, that you have the agreements in place to, because we have another game that we're working on. It's like my little baby project that will probably be
the game that we started doing, and then
Botany ate it. Yeah.
Like we joke around that like Flowers, like everything else, took over Dusty's game.
So I have a very nerd game that we're working on that was supposed to fill the market niche, not the market niche, but sort of the product level that we were looking to hit with Botany. And now I'm just going to take my time working on it. But like, we're working with artists there. Well, I've made sure with every single artist that I have working on that game, that they sign a work agreement that says here's the commercial rights and this and that and this and that, because that's one mistake you don't want to run into, is down the road you find out that you've made 40,000 copies of a game and that there's one image in there that you did not have proper rights to use, and the artist is not happy about it, and now you got to make sure that you got to find some way to compensate them, or you got to recall, not recall, but I don't know, I've never heard of a board game recall, but you got to pull back all the units you have for sale or whatever. Just make sure that everything don't be afraid to get a lawyer involved in your business, and that can be expensive, but that can also be, just go to them and they'll say, hey, for $300 I'll make sure. Go to LegalZoom, go anywhere you need to make sure that you have all that stuff lined up. And that's the number one mistake I'm worried about making, is that at some point we're going to find out that we missed some, not necessarily with the licensing and the photos, but we missed something that should not have been missed, and that it's gonna, and that it's gonna come back to bite us. And so I'll lie awake in the middle of the night, just like doing checklists in my head, like, oh, did I make sure that we have the trademark correctly filed and blah, et cetera, et cetera. So,
well, hopefully that doesn't happen and everything goes well. And I mean, you're going to make mistakes, like you already talked about. It's inevitable, but hopefully they're on the cheaper side and not the multiplied by 15,000 crazy side.
Like, there's been little mistakes with individual people too, but like our crew of people, anytime we're getting close to a precipice where I'm like, this could be a mistake, they have helped us, find the path of least resistance, fix it, solve it. Yeah. And shipping is the place where that is happening the most.
Logistics.
Yeah.
Amy, Dusty, this has been phenomenal. So much incredible information. Thank you so much for sharing it. Where can people find the game to late pledge or find out more about you guys or your potion company?
So we're Duxomnium on Instagram, DuxSomnium, Duxomnium.com. If you want to, we have a contact form there you can contact us through. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And we've had a few creators reach out to us, and we're happy to help you guys, answer any questions we can, because 6 months ago when I typed in how to Kickstarter, like I was there, like same way I still am there, but like I said, we found people that can help us answer all these things. Go to our Kickstarter. Yeah, if you want a late pledge, you go to our Kickstarter. Probably the easiest thing is we have late pledges set up in Backer Kit. So go to Kickstarter and just click the late pledge button, just like you do for most campaigns, and it'll take you right where you need to go.
Awesome. Thank y'all so much for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You too.